What if one flat tire could change two lives forever? What if the woman you stopped to help on the side of the road wasn't just a stranger, but the one that got away? This is the story of a struggling single father who discovers that the millionaire in a broken-down luxury car is his high school sweetheart, the woman who vanished from his life years ago. In a world of power, money, and old heartbreaks, can a second chance truly fix the past? Before we find out, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more unforgettable stories of love and fate. You won't want to miss a single moment of this journey. For Liam, the world wasn't made of glass towers and stock options. It was made of grease, steel, and the faint, sweet smell of his 7-year-old daughter's shampoo. His life was a constant balancing act. How much gas was left in his beat-up Ford truck versus how many miles he had to drive for the next odd job. How many dollars were left in his wallet versus how many days until rent was due. It was a life lived on the edge, a constant grind to stay afloat. But it was a life filled with a love so deep it made all the hardship feel like a distant hum. That love had a name: Lily. His daughter was the sun his entire universe revolved around. Every rusty bolt he turned, every engine he coaxed back to life, it was all for her. He'd wake up before dawn, the chill of their small apartment seeping into his bones, and make her pancakes shaped like stars and dinosaurs. He packed her lunch, always tucking a hand-drawn cartoon on her napkin, a small burst of color in her day. He was the one who braided her hair, checked her homework, and kissed her scraped knees. He was her father, her mother, her everything. And she was his. His work as a freelance mechanic was hit or miss. Some weeks, he had more jobs than he could handle, his hands stained black with oil and his muscles aching with a good kind of tired. Other weeks, the phone was silent, and a cold knot of anxiety would tighten in his stomach. He was a proud man who believed in the dignity of a hard day's work, but pride didn't pay the bills. He'd take landscaping jobs, carpentry, anything to keep their little boat from sinking. This particular Tuesday had been a long one. A full engine rebuild on an old sedan that fought him every step of the way. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky orange and purple as he finally steered his old truck onto the winding country road home. He was exhausted, his body screaming for a hot shower and a quiet evening with Lily. He was already picturing her running to the door, her face lighting up when he walked in. That image was the fuel that kept him going. That's when he saw it. Up ahead, parked awkwardly on the gravel shoulder, was a car so out of place, it looked like it had been dropped from another planet. A sleek, impossibly black sedan, the kind you see in magazines or guarding the entrance to a 5-star hotel. Its lines were sharp and aggressive, a predator resting on the side of a dusty, forgotten road. The hazard lights were blinking in a steady, almost serene rhythm, a silent, expensive cry for help. Liam's first instinct was to just keep driving. He was tired. He was dirty. He just wanted to go home. The owner of a car like that surely had premium roadside assistance on speed dial, a team of uniformed techs who would arrive in a pristine flatbed. He wasn't needed. But then he saw a figure standing beside the car, a woman, her silhouette framed by the setting sun. She had a phone to her ear, and even from a distance, he could see the frustrated tension in her posture, the sharp, angry gestures of her free hand. She looked alone, stranded. His father's voice echoed in his mind from a lifetime ago. "You don't stop to help because you have to, son. You stop because you can." With a heavy sigh, Liam flicked on his turn signal. The old truck groaned as he pulled over, parking a respectful distance behind the disabled luxury car. He was just a guy in a rusty truck, covered in another man's engine grease, but he could help. And for a man like Liam, that was reason enough. He killed the engine, the sudden silence rushing in, and stepped out onto the gravel, completely unaware he was about to walk straight into a ghost from his own past. As Liam got closer, the woman paced back and forth, her expensive heels crunching on the loose gravel. She was dressed in a tailored navy blue suit that probably cost more than his truck. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant bun, and her voice was clipped and sharp, filled with the kind of authority that expected the world to bend to her will. "No. I don't understand what a 2-hour window means. She snapped into the phone. I am on the side of County Road 12. There is a tree. There is a ditch. There is nothing else. Send someone now. Liam cleared his throat, not wanting to startle her. Excuse me, ma'am. Car trouble? She spun around, her eyes flashing with irritation. For a split second, she looked at him not as a person, but as another problem in her already ruined day. He saw her gaze flicker over his grease-stained work shirt, his worn jeans, his old truck. It was a look he was used to, the casual dismissal of the wealthy. Yes, she said, her tone icy. I have a flat tire, and apparently, my platinum-level roadside assistance is on a coffee break. Liam couldn't help but crack a small smile. Well, platinum service or not, a flat tire's a flat tire. I've got a jack and a lug wrench in my truck. Could have it changed for you in about 10 minutes. The woman paused, seeming to weigh her options. Wait 2 hours for a branded professional, or trust the stranger who just appeared out of the twilight in a rusty pickup. Her frustration warred with her caution. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, she lowered her phone. Fine, thank you. Liam nodded and went back to his truck, grabbing his heavy-duty jack and a 4-way lug wrench. He worked with an efficient, practiced grace. This was his element. The world of corporate phone calls and platinum service was foreign to him, but the simple, honest mechanics of a car that was a language he understood perfectly. As he worked, the woman watched him, her arms crossed. The silence between them was awkward, filled only by the clang of the wrench and the chirping of crickets. So, she said, her voice a little softer, as if trying to bridge the gap between their circumstances. What do you do? I'm a mechanic, Liam replied, not looking up. Mostly, I do a bit of everything, really. Whatever pays the bills. A jack of all trades, she remarked. He finally got the last lug nut loose and looked up at her, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a dark smudge. You could say that. My daughter just calls me Dad. That's the most important job. He saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or something else he couldn't read. You have a daughter? Yep, Lily. She's 7, he said, a wave of warmth washing over him as he spoke her name. She's waiting for me at home. That's why I'm in a bit of a hurry. The woman laughed. It wasn't a corporate, polite laugh. It was a genuine, musical sound that sliced through the evening air and hit Liam with the force of a physical blow. It was a sound he hadn't heard in 15 years, but one his heart had never, ever forgotten. His head snapped up. He looked at her, really looked at her, past the power suit and the severe hairstyle. He saw the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. He saw the small scar just above her left eyebrow. From that time, they'd tried to build a treehouse with his father's stolen tools. The world seemed to grind to a halt. The crickets went silent. The air grew thick. The immaculately dressed, high-powered woman in front of him began to dissolve, replaced by the image of a 17-year-old girl with fire in her eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest night. The girl who wore his football jacket. The girl he had shared his first kiss with under the bleachers. The girl who had promised him forever, and then vanished without a trace. Ava? He whispered, the name feeling both foreign and familiar on his tongue. Ava Sterling? The smile vanished from her face. Her eyes widened in shock, the mask of the powerful CEO shattering into a million pieces. She stared at him, her gaze tracing the lines on his face, the weariness in his eyes, the grease on his hands. Recognition dawned, followed by a tidal wave of emotions too complex to name. Liam? She breathed, her voice barely a whisper. And just like that, 15 years of silence, of heartbreak, of separate worlds, came crashing down around them on the side of a lonely country road. The struggling single dad and the millionaire CEO were gone. In their place stood a boy and a girl who had once been each other's entire world, now strangers standing in the ruins of their shared history. The air crackled with 15 years of unspoken words. Liam stood frozen, lug wrench hanging from his hand. Ava just stared, her carefully constructed composure gone. This wasn't possible. The boy she had left behind, the boy she'd been forced to forget, was standing right here, covered in dirt and oil. A man hardened by a life she couldn't possibly imagine. Liam recovered first, his practical side taking over. He cleared his throat and turned back to the tire, his movements now stiff and mechanical. "Small world," he muttered, focusing on the task. It was easier than looking at her, easier than confronting the ghost that had just materialized before him. Ava watched him, her mind reeling. "Liam, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said, his voice flat as he jacked up the car. "I'm just changing a tire." He was trying to put the wall back up, to separate the mechanic from the heartbroken teenager he had been. But it was too late. The wall had already crumbled. He finished the job in a tense, suffocating silence. He lowered the car, tightened the lug nuts with a final, forceful grunt, and tossed the tools back into his truck bed. He turned to face her, wiping his hands on an old rag. His hands were clean, but he still felt stained by the past. "You're all set," he said, his tone formal, distant. "It should hold until you can get to a proper garage." Formal. Was I be a step? Was I be a step? Was I be a step? Ava fumbled in her purse, her hands shaking slightly. She pulled out her wallet and a thick wad of cash. "Here," she said, holding it out. "Please, for your time, for your trouble." Liam looked at the money, then back at her face. It was a gesture from her world, a transaction. But this wasn't a transaction. This was a collision of two universes. He slowly shook his head. "I can't take that, Ava." "Why not?" she asked, confused. "You said it yourself. You do whatever pays the bills." "I do," he said, his jaw tightening. "But I wouldn't take money from an old friend." The words hung there, a bitter reminder of what they once were. He started to turn away, to retreat to the safety of his truck and the life that made sense. "Wait!" she called out, her voice desperate. She put the money away and pulled out a sleek metal business card. "Then, at least take this. Call me. I want to, I don't know, catch up. Properly." He hesitated, then took the card. It was cool and heavy in his calloused hand. He glanced at it under the dim glow of his truck's headlights. Ava Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Innovations. The company name hit him like a punch to the gut. Sterling Innovations wasn't just some company. It was a global tech empire, a giant in renewable energy. Its logo was on billboards, on TV, on the sides of the very city buildings he tried so hard to ignore. And she was its CEO. The girl who used to dream of opening a small bookstore with him now ran a billion-dollar corporation. He looked from the card back to her, and for the first time, he saw the immense, unbridgeable canyon between them. It wasn't just time and heartbreak that separated them. It was a chasm of wealth and power, so vast he couldn't even comprehend it. "I should go," he said quietly. "My daughter is waiting." He didn't wait for a reply. He got into his truck, the engine roaring to life with a familiar grumble, and drove away, leaving Ava Sterling standing alone in the darkness, the business card, a cold, heavy weight in his pocket. The drive home was a blur. When he walked through the door, Lily ran into his arms, squeezing him tight. "You're late, Daddy." "I know, sweetie. I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair, holding her close, trying to ground himself in the only part of his world that still felt real. Later that night, long after Lily was asleep, Liam sat at his small kitchen table, staring at that business card. What does a man like Liam do with a card like that? It was more than just metal. It was a symbol of a life he never knew, a life his first love had chosen over him. The story he had told himself for 15 years was simple. She left. She went to a fancy university and never looked back. She had chosen ambition over him. He had written letters, dozens of them, pouring his heart out onto cheap notebook paper. None were ever answered. After a year of silence, he finally accepted it. He had to move on. But he didn't know Ava's side of the story. He didn't know that from her sterile, glass-walled penthouse, she was also staring into the past. Her life was a monument to success, but her heart was an empty room. He didn't know that her family had systematically cut her off from him, intercepting their letters. He didn't know they showed her a cruel, forged letter, supposedly from him, saying he'd found someone else. Believing he had cast her aside, she had thrown herself into her career, building a fortress of success around her broken heart. Seeing Liam again had cracked that fortress's foundation. The mention of his daughter had sent a pang of longing through her, so sharp it almost buckled her knees. He had built a real life, filled with love, while she had built an empire of empty boardrooms. For 2 days, Liam ignored the card. He tried to force his life back into its familiar rhythm, but Ava's ghost was everywhere. On the 3rd day, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Hello? Liam? It's Ava. His heart hammered. How did you get my number? I'm the CEO of a tech company, she said, a hint of the old, playful Ava in her voice. I have my ways. Look, I know this is weird, but I was hoping you'd let me thank you properly. Dinner? He should have said no. He should have hung up. But 15 years of what-ifs were screaming in his mind. I can't, he said, the excuse ready. I have my daughter. Bring her, Ava said without a moment's hesitation. I'd love to meet her. And so, against his better judgment, Liam agreed. He was stepping into her world now, a world of 5-star restaurants and unspoken rules. He didn't know it yet, but this dinner would either heal their old wounds or tear them open for good. The restaurant was a place Liam didn't even know existed. No sign, just a discreet oak door tended by a man in a perfect suit. When Liam gave his name, the man's polite smile didn't falter, but Liam felt the familiar sting of judgment as his eyes scanned over Liam's best collared shirt and Lily's simple pink dress. Ava was already there, at a secluded table overlooking a stunning rooftop garden. Tonight, she wasn't the severe CEO. She wore a soft cashmere sweater. Her hair was down, and her smile was nervous, uncertain. She looked, for a fleeting moment, like the girl he used to know. Lily, usually shy, was immediately captivated. Are you a princess? She asked, her eyes wide. Ava's genuine, musical laugh filled the space. No, sweetie. I'm just Ava. She looked at Liam, a question in her eyes. She's beautiful, Liam. She takes after her mom, he said quietly, mentioning his late wife for the first time. He'd met Sarah a few years after Ava, and they'd built a quiet, happy life before a sudden illness took her, leaving Liam to raise their daughter alone. The dinner was a delicate dance around the past. They talked about Lily's school, Liam's work, Ava's company, in broad terms. It was polite. It was safe. But just under the surface, the tension was a coiled spring. Finally, as Lily was happily coloring, Ava leaned forward. Liam, about that day, about everything, she began, but she was cut off. Ava, darling, sorry I'm late. A man appeared at their table, tall, handsome, in a slick, polished way, and wearing a suit that was even more expensive than Ava's. He leaned down and kissed her on the cheek, a gesture that was both intimate and possessive. His eyes fell on Liam and Lily, and his smile tightened. I see you've made some friends, he said, his tone dripping with condescension. Julian, this is Liam Gallagher, an old friend, Ava said, her voice suddenly strained. And this is his daughter, Lily. Liam, this is Julian Croft, my fiancé. The word fiancé landed on the table like a lead weight. Liam felt the air leave his lungs. Of course, she was engaged. Julian Croft. He recognized the name from the business pages, a ruthless venture capitalist known for hostile takeovers. A perfect match for the CEO of Sterling Innovations. Gallagher, Julian said, not offering a hand, his gaze lingering on Liam's worn-out work boots. Charmed. I hope my fiancé wasn't boring you with shop talk. The rest of the dinner was misery. Julian dominated the conversation with talk of stock prices and mergers, occasionally directing a patronizing question at Liam. So, a mechanic? Must be nice to work with your hands. So, simple. Liam's jaw was clenched so tight, it ached. He saw the deep apology in Ava's eyes every time Julian spoke. When the ordeal was finally over, Julian pulled Ava aside. Liam was just out of earshot, but he could see Julian's angry gestures. Then, Julian turned to him. "A word of advice, Gallagher," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Whatever you think this is, it's not. Stay in your lane. It's better for everyone." He slipped a business card into Liam's hand. "Call this number. My assistant will arrange a payment for the tire incident. Let's call it 5,000. Enough to make you disappear." Before Liam could react, Julian was guiding Ava into a waiting car. Ava looked back, her face a mask of regret, before the door closed and the car vanished into the city. Liam stood on the sidewalk, Lily holding his hand, Julian's card burning a hole in his palm. $5,000. It was a lifeline. All he had to do was disappear. The offer was a poison apple, a test. Julian saw Liam as a simple problem money could solve, but he fundamentally misunderstood the man he was dealing with. That night, Liam didn't just tear up the card, he burned it. Meanwhile, Ava fought her own battle with Julian. "He's a good man, Julian," she'd push back. "A better man than you'll ever be." The next day, Ava drove herself to Liam's neighborhood. She found the small community park and saw him there, pushing Lily on a swing, his face full of pure, unadulterated joy. There was more happiness in that single moment than Ava had felt in an entire year. She approached them cautiously. "Hi," she said softly. Liam's expression was guarded. "What are you doing here, Ava?" "I came to apologize," she said, her eyes pleading. "For last night. For Julian. He offered me $5,000 to go away," Liam said flatly. Ava flinched, as if struck. "He what?" she whispered, horrified. "Liam, I had no idea." "It's not your fault," he said. Though he wasn't sure he believed it. "He's right. We're from different worlds, Ava. This was a mistake." "No," she insisted, stepping closer. "Seeing you again, it's the first real thing that's happened to me in years. Please, don't let him ruin this." She looked at the park. "I'm on the board of a foundation," she said, an idea forming. "We fund community projects. This park, it could use an upgrade. We could work on it together." Liam looked at her, then at the park, then at his daughter. It was a tempting offer, not for the money, but for the chance to do good, and to see Ava again, away from Julian Croft's world. It was a risk. It meant letting her back in. But, as he looked at her, he saw the desperate plea for connection in her eyes, a plea that mirrored a deep, forgotten longing in his own heart. "Okay," he said slowly. "Okay, Ava, let's fix up a park." It was a fragile truce, but Julian Croft was not a man who took kindly to being ignored. The park project became their sanctuary. They weren't CEO and mechanic anymore. They were just Liam and Ava. He brought his practical knowledge, sketching out designs and organizing volunteers. She brought her resources, cutting through red tape with a few decisive phone calls. They made an incredible team. More importantly, they started to talk. Ava finally told him about her family's deception, the intercepted letters, the forged note. "I should have been stronger," she confessed one afternoon. "I should have fought for you." Liam listened, the anger he had carried for so long dissolving, replaced by a profound sadness. "I never moved on, Ava," he said quietly. "Not really." In those weeks, Ava saw the man Liam had become. She saw him command the respect of his neighbors with his character, not his wallet. She saw him as a father, his love for Lily a powerful, unwavering force. And she realized the simple life she'd been taught to look down on was richer than her own. But Julian Croft was not about to be sidelined. He grew suspicious, and it didn't take him long to discover the park project. His fiancée, playing in the dirt with a common laborer. It was a humiliation he wouldn't tolerate. His revenge was swift and cruel. Using his influence, Julian anonymously tied the park's permit approvals to a massive, controversial development plan by Sterling Innovations. Then, he leaked a story to the press. A small community park was being threatened by the greedy expansion of Ava Sterling's company. The blowback was immediate. Protesters gathered. The media painted Ava as a ruthless CEO. The community that had rallied around Liam now looked at him with suspicion. Ava was devastated. She knew this was Julian's work. She called Liam, her voice breaking. "Liam, you have to believe me. This is Julian. He's trying to destroy us." "It doesn't matter who did it, Ava." Liam's voice was harsh with pain. "It's your company, your world, and it just poisoned the one good thing we were trying to build." Julian was right. I should have stayed in my lane. He hung up. Ava was faced with an impossible choice. The board demanded she cut ties with the park and prioritize the multi-billion-dollar deal. It was the sensible business move, the move the old Ava would have made. But she wasn't the old Ava anymore. She stormed into Julian's office. "Call it off," she demanded. Julian leaned back, a smug smile on his face. "I don't know what you're talking about. It seems your little pet project ran into some unfortunate political realities." "This isn't politics, Julian. This is you," she spat. "You did this to hurt him, to hurt me." "I did this to protect us," he countered, his voice turning to ice. "To remind you where you belong. Your choice is simple, Ava. It's him, or it's this." He gestured around his opulent office. "You can't have both." And in that moment, Ava knew he was right. She couldn't have both. For 15 years, she had made the choice everyone wanted her to make. She had chosen power and wealth, and it had led her to this empty, gilded cage. Now, looking at the smug, cruel face of her fiancé, she made a different choice. She chose herself. She walked out of Julian's office and went straight to an emergency board meeting. They expected her to fold. Instead, she announced that Sterling Innovations was withdrawing its development proposal. Furthermore, her personal foundation would purchase the parkland and place it in a community trust forever. Finally, she announced her resignation as CEO, effective immediately. The room erupted, but Ava felt a calm she hadn't known in her entire adult life. She had torched her golden cage. For the first time, she was free. Meanwhile, Liam wasn't sitting idly by. He organized a community meeting, standing before his neighbors, his voice steady. He took responsibility, but then refocused them on a plan, on a solution. He gave them hope. He was in the middle of that meeting when Ava walked in. The room fell silent. She wasn't in a power suit, just jeans and a sweater. She stood by the door, watching him. When Liam finished to a round of applause, he walked over to her. "What are you doing here?" he asked softly. "I quit," she said simply. "I gave them the park. It's safe. It's yours. The community's." Liam was stunned. "You what? Ava, your company, your whole life." "It wasn't a life, Liam," she said, her eyes welling with tears. "It was a balance sheet. You, this park, the woman I started to become when I was with you. That feels like a life. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I had to choose. And I choose this. I choose real." He looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time. Not as a CEO or a ghost, but as the woman who had just sacrificed everything to do the right thing. The woman who had finally fought back. He reached out and, for the first time in 15 years, took her hand. It felt like coming home. True love isn't a fairy tale ending. It's not about a poor boy being rescued by a rich girl. True love is a choice. It's the choice to be vulnerable, to forgive, and to build something new from the wreckage of the past. Liam and Ava didn't fall back into an easy romance. They started over, brick by brick. She had to find herself, stripped of the title and power that had defined her. She volunteered at the community center, using her sharp mind to write grants for after-school programs. She discovered joy in simple things, cooking dinner with Liam and Lily, planting flowers in the park she had saved, the feeling of dirt under her own fingernails. Liam's life was transformed, but not by her money. He still fixed cars. His hands still got dirty, but the gnawing anxiety was gone, replaced by a quiet peace. His life was transformed because his family, which had felt broken for so long, finally felt whole again. Months later, we see them at the park's grand reopening. Lily is cutting a ribbon, with Liam on one side and Ava on the other, their hands clasped together. They're laughing. It's not a perfect storybook ending. It's something better. It's real. It's a second chance that wasn't just given, but earned. It all started with a simple act of kindness on a lonely road. A reminder that sometimes the biggest changes in our lives begin when we choose to stop and help a stranger who might just hold the missing piece of our own heart. Love and integrity are treasures that no amount of money can buy. What did you think of Liam and Ava's story? Tell us in the comments what you would do for a second chance at true love. And don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who believes in the power of fate. Thanks for watching.